Hi, welcome to Strength Coach TV. I'm Anthony Renna. This is the show where we take you into some of the country's best fitness facilities, give you a tour, and then sit down with the owner to talk a little shop. Today I head out to Syosset, New York in Long Island to see my friends TJ Lopez and Mike Stella, and they have Athletic Movement Protocol, or AMP, and they're doing some interesting things there. Really doing a great job combining the training with the physical therapy. Mike does the recovery lab, and I love the way they've designed this facility. They've been through a lot. They've been through a few different kind of ups and downs in their journey to get to where they are now, and they've done a great job with branding. They have an area where they have just recovery, and then they have an area where they're doing almost like a little coffee bar. I love it. Really interesting place, great story. So let's head out to Syosset to Athletic Movement Protocol. Hey guys, welcome to Strength Coach TV. I'm Anthony Renna. We are in Syosset, Strong Island. I'm here with TJ Lopez and Mike Stella. I'm at AMP.
That's right.
Guys, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for coming here.
Coming down.
Love it. I mean, how long have we been talking?
We've been talking about it for a while. Finally got you out here.
But I'm glad. You know what? I'm glad I came when I did, because this is just done. So that's awesome, guys.
Yeah.
Love it. What's the square footage here?
5147.
51.
To be exact.
Nice.
Yeah, 5,147.
Beautiful.
Saw that a bunch of times when we were going over the list. Yeah.
Now, how long have you been in this space?
So this location, it's actually our year anniversary for getting the keys. We got here, we were across the street, directly across the street on Robbins Lane. We're actually in Syosset now. That was Jericho.
Okay.
We were coming, well, we'll kind of go over the story. We were coming we were renting inside of a baseball facility. That place wound up, the owner went out of business, and we found this place just in the nick of time. We found it in November of, I guess, what is that now? November of 15.
Right.
And it took a while, obviously, with the lease negotiation and whatnot. We took up about 3,500 square feet in the other place.
Okay.
So we're upgrading in square footage, but it's 100% usable. So it's much better space for us.
Nice. Now we could do probably 2 more episodes just on that story, but we'll keep it short.
Mm-hmm.
How many employees you guys have?
Right now, it's myself, Mike, and 2 other full-time coaches.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And Mike, you're doing
mostly
recovery lab.
Recovery lab, yeah.
Cool.
So
AMP recovery lab. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
So Mike helps out with the day-to-day managerial things, help put the website together, helps with the day-to-day check-ins, but mostly, his number one thing is being the manual therapist in the athletic training room.
Cool. And really quick, and maybe we'll get to this when we sit down. Are you marketing that in a different way with the physical therapy, or how does that work?
We have been lately, especially, but it's a huge added bonus to our clientele that we already have in here.
Yeah.
But Mike's been doing an amazing job lately of getting unique visitors coming through the door. A lot of adults and actually bodybuilders, because the vicinity that we are to go to the East Coast Mecca, Bev Francis Gym, which is right in the other parking lot, right next to us. So it's a unique situation where we've got bodybuilders and competitors that know about Mike now, mainly because we have a nutrition store that's right across the way that deals with a lot of them, and we get a lot of referrals off of that. So that's been a pretty cool little thing as well.
Well, let's segue that into your membership in here. Obviously, I mean, we're standing on this beautiful turf.
Yep.
We see the great videos, CC Sabathia training here.
Right.
We know you train a lot of athletes. Is that mostly who you're training now, or what's going on?
Right now we're in a place where we are coming off of pretty much 100% athlete. Okay. And we're trying to really get our adult population going. But right now we're still probably around 85 to 90% athlete clientele. It's all based off of membership. Our base membership is somewhere around $400 to $500 a month. Okay. And that's actually unlimited training. Originally, we were talking about doing the 2 times a week, the 3 times a week, the 1 time a week. But we actually, talking with Thomas Plummer, I've been consulting with him over the last 4 years. Okay. And he's really been helping us out with just kind of thinking outside the box when it comes to the membership options, and finding out what it really takes to train here. and what it really takes for us to get them the results. So we wanted to make it more of an unlimited setup.
Yeah.
So we have some athletes that train 6 times a week, some athletes that train 2 to 3 times a week. But it's really been, results are really what we're after, and that's what we've been getting.
Yeah, Alan Cosgrove said to me one time, when we weren't offering unlimited, he said, well, ideally, how many days would it take to train to get the ultimate results, right?
Right.
And I don't know if I said 5 or 6, and he's like, well, can they come there 5 or 6? And at the time, they couldn't.
Right.
So yeah, I just went to the unlimited thing, and it also makes it so much easier for the consumer. You don't want 14 choices of come once a week, but you can add on packages, and it gets crazy with that stuff. So
yeah, right now we show kind of a basic model of kind of the most common options.
Yeah.
We do have our add-ons. We've got the recovery lab, we've got the nutrition, we've got different consulting, we have personal training, but most of our training is done in small groups, and we have large group speed and agility classes, and similar to the adults where we have the small group strength training and we have the large group conditioning classes.
Yeah.
So we try to simplify it. The adult training is much simpler. There's just a few options there.
Yep.
We're starting to add a few different wrinkles in there as well with the nutrition coaching. From Precision Nutrition. So
very cool.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff going on here. So let's take a tour.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
What's up, guys? We're in the office right here. It's right at the front door, so figured we start in the main office, if you want to call it that. Okay, so our athletes will walk in right here. It's a good thing, I get to wave if I'm in there. I got my standing desk, so I try to stay alert who's walking in the door. This thing beeps when everybody walks in.
Okay.
So,
that's a reminder.
They come in here. Usually the kids they put their cell phones. They'll put their sneakers. Switch out whatever shoes they're wearing. Hopefully, in the snow. They're not dragging it in.
What's going on here?
Yeah, this is. Don't pull the curtain back.
Curtain number 1.
So the one thing that you'll see is we don't have as much storage as we'd like. So this was a little kind of solution that we came up with just to get it out of the way.
Yeah.
We got a little fridge, and we got, that's where we store our vending stuff.
Yep.
The waters and coconut waters and stuff. Little coat rack, we just put that up. Piece by piece. As you walk in the door.
You guys got going on.
Yeah, so we, that's one thing that I have a lot of fun with the branding side. So we've been taking footage from day one, and we started to clip it together. I like to say student of the YouTube University on how to put this stuff together and make it look as professional as we can without going crazy. So we've got our little kind of media set up here. We've got we use MindBody, so we encourage the athletes to sign in right here. They click the class, and then if they're in that class, they just check right in, so we don't have to do it ourselves. So it's a nice little thing. Obviously, we got our business cards and a little flyers here, and we also have a little, especially in the beginning, if the athletes want to or the parents want to read a little bit more, we've got our philosophy, things like that, at the front desk as well.
Cool.
So.
And where would they read that? Here in the coffee
in the little coffee shop, right. So like we spoke about before we got on, I'm definitely a coffee snob, and I do enjoy kind of going around the city and seeing the different ways that they kind of market or the way that they brand their spaces. So we went very kind of like workbench, rustic. So this is a work desk from Home Depot. We also went to this place, Brooklyn Reclaimed, in the city, and they got us some wood. This is all kind of like old school wood that they'll just kind of refurbish and paint up. Black pipe for the posts. We've got it here, and also with the shelving. This took a while. I've got a very handy uncle who's in construction. Mike's very handy himself. I'm not that handy, but I do help out. But that was kind of the look and feel that we were looking for over here, is more of that kind of industrial type space that has a little bit of a cool factor to it.
Let's explore this area too.
Yeah.
I noticed the vending machine right away. Tell us about this vending machine and some of the economics behind it.
Right. So I'm not sure if this is offered in everybody's area, but this is a company called Big Geyser that they'll kind of put the refrigerator here for us. Just all we have to do is make sure that we order from them. So we buy it at, if we pay $1 for the water, we charge $2, so about 50% markup on everything. And it actually helps because we have, we call it the fuel station, where our athletes will buy either an almond milk or a Zico or even a Body Armor, something, we always try to offer something that's healthy. And then they're gonna use that as a mixer for their protein and for their post-workout shake.
You give them, they all have their little shaker here, huh?
Yeah, so we blender bottle, we got them branded, so it's a nice little branding piece. Obviously looks cool on the shelf as well. And then, so this area right here is another this is more for us. We've got our coffee, our tea, our blender, I make soup in this thing here. So this is a little almost like our break room area where
the trailer park chairs.
Yeah, so these are actually Normatec, which Michael will speak more about. Normatec uses these at their events, and they're actually lounge chairs, zero gravity, so their kids kind of kick back, throw the stim device or the compression boots on, and relax and watch some TV on the big screen.
Ooh.
So.
Okay, you got the restroom here. Now you do have a shower, and you and I have had this discussion for years about to shower or not to shower. Not to shower, but
well, you definitely should shower at least once a day, I would say. But at the end of the day, we have spoken about this. And across the street, we didn't have a shower, and I really missed it. Just for myself, I sweat a lot when I work out, so I don't want to be sweaty and stinky all day if I work out in the morning. So it's really for the staff. Okay. We do have a few clients that have used it here and there, but at the end of the day, we all like to work out, in the late morning, shower up, and we're ready to go in the afternoon. So,
so all for you guys, really. At the end of the
we're
day,
selfish.
Yeah, when you only have one, that's what's going to happen, right?
Right.
So good stuff. And I see you're selling a lot of nutrition or supplements and
right. So yeah, we got associated with Thorne Research when they actually had their partnership with Exos, which since then has expired. But we still do carry all of their line. Mostly what we use is the whey protein for their post-workout shakes. It's all NSF certified, so it's great stuff. It's things that we can stand by because we have such a high athlete population. So very important. It gets a little messy at times because the kids serve themselves, but we do our best to keep it clean.
Well, speaking of that, this is a big place. You got the black mat here, which probably can get a little. You got a lot of stuff going on. You got a lot of young kids in here. Talk to us about cleaning, because there's only the two of you, and you have the two other coaches. Right. Cleaning company.
Yes, I definitely recommend that. Especially after. I'd say after about 50 to 60 clients, it starts to really get messy. If you don't have a consistent cleaning company. We have a cleaning company that they just came in this morning. They come in every Tuesday. And then we have to obviously tidy up and clean up here and there throughout the week. So I would definitely recommend at least once a week. Finding an affordable, right now we're paying about $75 a visit. They're here for about an hour. They got a staff of 4 guys. So, they get the job done. They mop, they clean, they wipe down. They don't deep clean every single time, but it gets it going in the right direction.
Yep, good decision, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can tell you, being married, getting a cleaning lady once a week was probably the best decision for my marriage. By the way, just as a side note, guys.
Exactly.
Young guys. All right, what do we got here? We got this is the recovery lab, right? The amp recovery.
The amp recovery lab.
Yep, that's right.
The prototype. Yeah, so the AMP Recovery Lab, it's a little bit of a wrinkle on your classic, PT and sports performance kind of partnership. What we did was we really pared it down. We stripped it down of all the stuff that we didn't really need, and we kept it down to the things that work. So we have a Normatec MVP recovery system. It's an intermittent compression system. So when the athletes do a Recovery Lab add-on package, they get the the recovery technology, we call it, for free. So they can use this every day.
Okay.
You know, so heavy leg workouts, we'll have the guys jump in the leg boots. We work with a lot of baseball players, so we have the arm sleeves as well. You know, and then we also offer the Mark Pro and the Complex, which are very similar. You know, they're both electrical stimulation devices, but they're more on the recovery side. They're not really treating your pain, just more, you know, helping get the muscles and the nervous system working. But this has really, you know, helped us a lot, keeping the guys fresh, especially in the unlimited training model.
Yeah.
Getting the most out of every workout, so it's really been a huge hit. And then in the recovery lab, if you guys want to come in, you know, this is where a lot of like the hands-on nitty-gritty work gets done. You know, so you know, it's very manual therapy based, so you'll see there's no stim machines or ultrasound or anything like that in the classic PT, but you know, we'll do a lot of like active release work in here. I do some Graston technique. We'll use a lot of the rock tape, cupping, you know, things that are a little bit more on like the holistic end of the spectrum. But what we do is TJ and I will collaborate and make sure that our interventions in here and what we're doing with the athletes on the training side is meshing. So.
Cool. One question about, you know, because we see a lot of places that work with athletes, they always have like this, almost like the open model, like right here, like everybody, you're out in front of everybody, but, you know, did you feel like it was really important to have a room where you could shut the door? Because I don't always see that.
You know what, I think it was really more, I think the general population side, I think where it was more important to have a private treatment room. You know, we have the couch in here, so when I do have like younger athletes that are in here for injuries, parents want to sit and watch, it's a comfort thing. A lot of times when I'm working on like the college and the pro guys, the door's open. You know, they don't really care so much, so we'll just leave the door open so that we're part of the conversation. But it's nice that when you need that little bit of a separation to have it, and then we have like the athletic training style tables out in the gym kind of deal. So they, when they're doing their stim or Normatec, they could just, you know, hang out with the rest of the guys. So it's the best of both worlds, I think.
One thing that I think all business owners can learn from people from Long Island is they always got a guy and they always find ways to do stuff. Talk to us about some of the money that you guys saved in this room.
I mean, you know, so as soon as you get on the medical side of stuff, and even on the performance side, I mean, I feel like stuff's definitely more, it gets real pricey. So, you know, when we started Recovery Lab, this is really like an unproven model. It was something that was different, like a membership-based sports medicine service, not very common. We didn't really have much to go off of. So our initial investment, we wanted to keep it tidy so that we weren't, you know, really putting ourselves out on a ledge financially. So really pouring over Craigslist, you know, looking for people that had secondhand equipment they were willing to let go. And we found a woman who was actually liquidating part of her practice. It was a physical therapy practice, and I think, man, we get pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, it was we spent about, I think it was $1,300 bucks.
$1,300.
And we priced everything out, if we had bought it new, about $14,000.
Right.
So this Metron table itself, I think, is around $3,500 or $4,000. The hydrocolator, brand new, is probably somewhere $1,500, $2,000.
Exactly right.
You know, even the treatment tables, which we didn't actually have enough space for. We have another one that's some other spot. I don't even know where it is. But you know, we all we did was kind of refurbish them, but they're just like brand new. You know, if you bought them brand new, again, those are $1,000 a piece.
Yeah, so you can add up that money in a hurry for stuff that's, you know, kind of secondary to the main mission of what we're doing. So you know, we were able to find it, you know, really inexpensively and get ourselves started up and really give this Recovery Lab model an opportunity to grow and actually be something that's, you know, a revenue generator. So
all right, well, let's
so then kind of what the clients are gonna, I'll kind of spare the walk across, but normally they'll come right in. Sometimes they'll see Mike first, so obviously that they'll maybe have a 3:30 appointment with Mike, and then they're gonna come out on the gym at 4 o'clock. So they'll obviously greet us at the front desk, and they're gonna go across the gym to grab their folder, which we'll meet over there just in a bit. So they're gonna grab that folder, they're gonna come over here into the mobility area where we have our garage hooks.
You guys did a great job.
It's like garagestorage.com or something like that. So at the end of the day, we had to do our best when it comes to storage and when it comes to keeping it organized. So this is just maybe 1 or 2 units that comes with all the different hooks and whatnot. We've bought some since. You know, so this is something that real simple, drill it into the wall, and then you can organize it as however you want. It doesn't always look this beautiful, but at the end of the day, we do our best to keep it organized at the end of the day. Each day we check it. We've got all our mobility stuff over here in the baskets, our cones and ladders and bands. So they'll obviously grab their foam roller. This is where we're going to roll out. This is actually also the area where we do our athletic evaluations. So we've got a few pieces of technology over here. This one's called the Opto Jump, which is actually being lent to me by a friend who really didn't have a use for it, so I've been using it for vertical jump and things like that. This is kind of the area for that. We've got our little kind of rotator cuff and band setup over here. Deal with a lot of baseball players and softball players and quarterbacks actually, so throwing athletes in general. So obviously having the band station was a nice little add to be in the warm-up area. We'll do our pail-off presses and all of our band exercises. We've got the yoga mats hanging up in the air in the corner.
Fan over there too.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That was another client of ours. They ordered it. It had a dent in it, so he gave it to us. So that's another save right there. And that's huge. We don't have air conditioning, so it does get warm in here in the summers. So we've got the garage door, which is nice to be able to open that. We actually have a mister in the summer that we turn on, so the athletes want to go outside, cool down in the cold, the cool water.
Yeah, tent with a mister fan.
And then this fan, it's a little loud, but we deal with it in the afternoons in the summer.
Cool. Let's talk. Well, right here we got a big net. What is this thing doing?
So
you work with a lot of baseball players.
Yeah, a lot of baseball players, and we actually have a quarterback coach that comes here and trains quarterbacks. So we've got baseballs and footballs flying at different times of the day. So we do have. This is actually my father-in-law came in. He works in HVAC and he hangs giant HVAC units. So all of this steel and everything, that's kind of the stuff that you don't see. This took about a couple of weeks to put this up there. That's like
300 pounds of angle iron.
Yeah.
Suspended from the ceiling.
Wow.
Yeah. So this was, it was a little bit of a project to make sure that our netting is safe and sturdy. So we've got a divider net that divides the entire gym in half, pretty much. We've got it's about 2,700 square feet of turf, right? So the turf was something that we weren't sure if we were going to go with the standard 15 feet wide, but we decided to go 30 feet wide. And I think, for the way that we train, we really like it. And it was a little expensive. I'll tell you that much. It was, the black turf color with the lines. It all came done. We installed it ourselves. Another thing where we kind of saved a little bit of cash in the beginning. But it's a statement piece, and it's also very functional. We use it. We've got big, groups of 12, 15 athletes at a time on the turf at once.
I know you had a cleaning crew in here, but it smells awfully nice.
Yes, it does, Anthony. Glad you reminded me about that. So if you look up there, we actually have. Yeah, we've got another added expense that we weren't really expecting in the beginning, especially. When we moved in, the unit next door to us was empty, so we actually were considering taking it over. It's about 3,000 square feet, but it was that added expense, the added rent that we weren't sure we were ready for right off the bat. Would have made it an 8,000 square foot facility. So they wound up renting it to a fish processing company. So we've actually got a seafood store across the way, and there's a lobster store down the unit, which didn't have any smell, didn't have any issues. But next door they process fish, so we do have a bit of a smell every once in a while. But we solved that by getting this scent air system that. It's about $200 a month, but it diffuses throughout the entire facility, and it's we get some compliments on how good it smells now. Right. So it was a necessary expense and a necessary evil, but it's one of those things we weren't expecting.
A little bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
You never know until you get into it, what
right.
you really need to do.
So we've got our batting cage over here, which is another great thing for added revenue. We rent the cage out per hour. And we also are able to have teams to come in here and hit and practice. So that draws all the way out the length of the turf. We've got another net that we haven't actually put up, but we have two nets if we need them. So for batting cages, for pitching lessons, We actually had a softball coach in here last night that did a few lessons.
Clinics, yeah.
So it's a nice little, if you have the space to make it multi-functioning, I wouldn't recommend having it where you have to have the net all the time, where you can kind of pull it out and push it away when you need it. But it's definitely been a nice little bonus for revenue.
You guys, like I said, you guys do a good job with all of this, making use of your space, hanging sleds, hanging things in here, good stuff.
Yeah, and again, if you went with the things that are specific to hanging bands and whatnot, it gets a little expensive. So, this is garage. It's, you get it on Amazon or on the internet. It's not as expensive.
However you want, So, we were able to, spend very little money and really, like you said, utilize. There's no storage in here, so it's a big open room. So the more things you can hang up on the wall and get it up off the floor, it just looks cleaner. It's safer for the athletes.
So I guess getting back over here to the client folders, this was something that we had a bit of an issue with once we started to grow. Once we started to get past like 30, 40, 50 clients, now we're up over 100 clients. So we've got our folders of all of our current clients are in here, and then we put them back into like the filing cabinet that we had out on the floor, and this was just paper everywhere. So that was more of an organization issue, but we've solved it since grabbing the binders.
TJ, what's going on here too with, you got a TV, you got a desk, what else is happening over here?
Right, so this is our little coaching area. Our coach Kyle, this is kind of his desk right here. Whenever he needs to write a program on the fly, or if he's doing an evaluation, he can actually pull up, we've got the screen that he could pull up his screen and share it with one of our clients, kind of going over maybe an athletic evaluation or a coach's eye eval. And then this obviously allows him to keep his eyes on the floor if he has to maybe make a tweak to a program real quick. Obviously storage again, these are all just kind of garage storage units where we keep all of our cleaning supplies and things like that. Our little library as well.
With the industrial feel too, you don't need to kind of enclose this, what I mean? Right. It's like because other people might say, let's get some barriers here or whatever, but it fits in with with the rest of the place here. So
exactly, yeah. We wanted to keep it as open as we could and as functional as we could. We wanted the most training space possible. So.
Cool. And you guys do spend. We're looking at you right now. There's a white background, and because it's not done yet, you have this great, beautiful yellow and black are your colors. You just got this done, which is awesome. Talk to us about that stuff, how important you think that is, because that's a big expense.
Yeah, it is. I've always been a proponent of branding and just creating an environment, a motivating environment. So when we've talked about this in the past, where whenever you make a decision, financial decision, does it align with your core values? And one of our core values is to make an environment where our athletes and our clients are motivated. So we do make sure that when we spend money, it's spent correctly. It's not as expensive as you would think. We found a designer that was overseas online. We found him, and he charged us per project. It was very reasonable, about $1,500 to design it. And then the painting all done, it'll be about $3,000. So $4,500, and I think it's going to be a real statement that when you walk in the door, we've got the unity, we're going to have some kind of motivational quotes and things, and just. We always want to make sure that the athletes feel like this is home. So when we start to put their team T-shirts and jerseys up on the wall, we always want to have that community feel, which I think is very important.
Good stuff. Well, let's go have a seat and let's go talk some business.
Definitely.
Great.
All right, guys. First of all, black and yellow schools. I love it.
I'm a little crazy, I'll tell you that much. If you look at the floor over there, it's gray with yellow and black specks too. So.
The devil's in the details.
There you go.
The devil's in the details.
Like I was kidding around before. We don't have time to go. We could do like 2 episodes on the stuff that you've been through. And I've been there for, you and I have been friends for a long time, and I've kind of seen this whole thing kind of develop over time. It's been great. But let's go from there. You were right across the street. So go from that story, like being across the street, thinking things are going okay, and then the the rug gets pulled out from under you. And talk about moving over to here.
Right. So it was definitely a unique situation. Maybe not to everyone. Most people will attest that taking a low risk where you kind of move into someone else's business might be a good thing in the beginning, which it was for us.
Yeah.
I actually started off in another town in about 300 square feet, grew out of that space real quick. Then we found this space right across the street. It was an old friend of mine that was part owner of the baseball facility. So we took over in the beginning about 2,000 square feet, did well, grew up to about 3,500 square feet, and we were doing pretty well. There were the issues of kind of having another, working inside of another person's business where they don't walk into your gym. They're walking into someone else's business first. So that was a bit of an issue just on the culture side.
Especially with somebody who's so concerned with like how things look too, right? I mean, they might have things on the floor, like the first.
It's not as important to them.
Exactly. Yeah. So those are the things that we had issues with, but at the end of the day, it was a tragedy. Actually, the business owner passed away.
Oh wow! Okay.
So they went out of business, and it was a very, very tumultuous time. We sat down, we had lunch, and talked about it. One thing I would definitely recommend is whenever you have issues that you're not sure about, make sure that you have counsel, whether it's friends, family, or legal counsel, because when that happened to us, we were subleasing from the other business. When they went out of business, the landlord came down and pretty much said, "You've got a month to get your stuff together or get out of here." So I went to a family friend who was a lawyer, and he kind of helped me through that process. It wound up that we had found this space across the street. That was actually another gym going out of business.
Wow.
In the meantime, so it was really a timing thing, a little bit of luck. But at the end of the day, things fall into place sometimes, and it's just really unbelievable how it did come together, and over that about a year's time. But yeah, it was definitely it took us. We started negotiating in November of 15. It took us until March of 16 to get in here. So. It was a long process. We had the negotiation of this new space, and then we also had the issues of the landlord wanting to charge us $20,000 a month or get out in the old space. So it was about 14,000 square feet, which we had about 3,500 of, and they came in, told us they were going to be reasonable. Then they said, you know what, we need our rent, and I totally I understood it was a business. But it was definitely stressful. It was
ridiculous,
and that's the whole thing. Dealing business on Long Island, sometimes it's cutthroat. And I didn't go to business school, but this has been the business of hard knocks, the school of hard knocks. And I was scared. I was very fearful of what was going to happen. And I think business owners, and with employees especially, you don't want to have something like that happen, and everybody's livelihood depends on the success of the business. So when someone else, an outside force was affecting us in that way, I tell you, man, I was a scared person for a couple of months, and it all worked out. And like I said, you got the support. I got my guy Mike, who was there by my side the whole time. I've got my uncle, my father, my father-in-law that were helping me with the business side, and my lawyer. That just made me kind of rest at night knowing that everything's going to be okay. And I think don't go at it alone. I think as a business owner, you have to have your support group. Like I said, it could be family and friends, but also go after that legal support that will really put you at ease, because this is new to me. All of these different things with lease negotiations and a landlord telling you that you got to pay or get out. Well, what does that really mean? So, and it was all around the holidays of that year, which I was as stressed as I've ever been in my life.
It's very similar to, we have a therapist and we have a trainer, right?
Right.
And, you have roles here.
Right.
And I think we forget about counsel and insurance and accounting and all of these other advisors, and like family members who have been through this type of stuff in one way or another, maybe not the exact situation.
Right.
But it's really important. It does take a village to kind of get things going, and keep them going. So.
Right. Well, yeah, my uncle's in real estate, so he just kept telling me, don't worry about it. Don't make a big deal about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be okay because he's been through it himself. So,
yeah.
you know, that was kind of good for me to have that in the family that kind of, you know, ease the situation.
And it's amazing too, because just kind of walking around in here, like obviously, you know, you and I have been talking for all this time through this, and this is the first time I'm here.
Yeah.
But it's almost like, what do you mean? I mean, this place is great.
Yeah.
You know, like, what's the problem?
Right.
I mean, this is gorgeous. I
Well,
mean,
that's like
so
when we talk.
works out, right?
When we talk about like day one, where you're looking up at the ceiling, you're like, they missed the spot with the paint. You know, like, and then after a while, it all just becomes white noise. And you know, you in the beginning, you're gonna, if you're like me, you're a perfectionist, and you're gonna want everything to be perfect, but that's gonna slow you down. So at times it's a fault, and it's, you know, it's something that you have to kind of get over in the beginning, and just, you know, it'll all work out.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
Exactly.
When we were building it out, I used to always have to tell him, because he's definitely the more conceptual of the two, and I was more the hands-on, like, can we do this? Yeah, we can do that. And like, TJ, we're not building a piano. You know, I think I said that once a day for like the entire month.
Exactly,
out.
for sure.
It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, because when it's all done, it's going to look perfect.
Yeah. You got to be patient too. Like, you know, you can't think, oh, we got to get this wall painted right now, and it's not that big of a deal. It's not going to affect any training.
Right. Well, when we opened, we didn't have that whole kind of like vending area. We didn't have a few pieces of equipment that we really wanted. We didn't have the holes in the wall for the band attachments, but we got it started. You know, and the one funny thing about that is, especially we train a lot of high school and college athletes. Every time you make a little change for positive, they notice it. And it's like, oh man, you got this new thing. It's like, that was like $20 on Amazon. It's like,
that little stuff.
they're like, oh, look at that. They got a tissue holder. It's like, you know, it's such a little thing, but you know, when you're improving, people notice it. The parents notice it. The kids notice it. And you know, there's something to that.
What about, we were talking about the fish place.
Right.
Do you wish, you know, maybe, I mean, look, hindsight is 20/20, but do you wish you took that space and had the 8,000, or?
You know, if you came back to me maybe in a year from now, I might have a different answer, but right now, it wasn't. At the time, we were considering actually where we have all these cages, and from coming across the street, that was part of their business, was renting to teams. So in the meantime, while we were there for the 3 or 4 months in the transition, we actually did take rents from teams that came in. So that was a consideration of, oh, you know what, maybe we can do that in the new space as well. So we were considering taking the next door, and we actually have a few friends of ours that are in the baseball business that we wanted to make sure if it worked for them. Which is at 3,000 square feet. It was a little too narrow for them. So that was one reason why we decided not to take it. But you know, who knows? We might grow out of this space in 2 to 3 or 4 years, which we're moving toward that. But I don't think it was at the time it wasn't the right decision for us to make. But again, we might be like in a year from now, like, wow, we really kind of need that.
What about, we were talking to Coach Boyle, and he actually, on Sundays, they're not open, but he rents it to like a soccer company. I mean, are you guys doing anything like that on like a Sunday when you're not open?
Yeah, it's actually
afternoons and evenings?
Right, late night, we have a quarterback coach that comes in here, and he finds about 20 to 25 hours a week where we're not using the turf. So we have speed and agility classes that go on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays where we really need the whole space. But then we have our other days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturdays and Sundays on the off times, where we don't necessarily need the entire turf. So he'll either take a section of it, or we'll pull the net out for a hitting coach or a softball coach. So we haven't necessarily rented out. We actually ran a softball event here on a Sunday as well. So yeah, it's definitely for added revenue. You know, we come up with a fair price for the square footage. The one thing is that there are a lot of businesses out there that their main business is to rent turf. Right? That's not our main business. So it's a little added bonus. So we can always come in at a better price, and the coaches like the environment. You know, we have a scheduling system. You know, we take the payments, so we make it easier on the coaches as well. So, you know, it's one of those things that it's not going to be a huge part of our business, but it's a little supplement. You know, maybe $8,000, $2,000 here and there.
It brings athletes through the door. You know, athletes that might not have come through otherwise come in for a softball lesson, and then they see the training or the recovery stuff going on, and they might have an issue, and it starts a conversation with a parent or a prospective.
And we also, we have a lot of baseball players that they like to pull the net out when it's not being used. And they warm up before their lift. And
I would have brought a wedge, man.
Exactly.
There you go.
Let's talk a little bit about the recovery lab and the future of the recovery lab. You got, I mean, it's relatively small.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But you have this unlimited, program going on.
Right.
Where does that grow into?
Right.
Well, I think, and again, this is one of the really unique things you say, like having a support system. And when TJ and I came back together, I had my own business plan for something like that, and he had his training model. And we're like, well, wouldn't it be great if we put them together and then we didn't have to double dip on scheduling software and this and that and this and that. So we're sharing cost, and we're also both pushing in the same direction in terms of the branding and the marketing. So, growing one brand is a hell of a lot easier than growing two brands. But, we do market the Recovery Lab, to different populations differently, to the bodybuilding community, our power lifters and our general population. But yeah, that's more of the per session type of model. So when the athletes are training, they get a discount. If they're already training here, they get a pretty deep discount in the Recovery Lab. And then I have a separate pricing structure for people who aren't training here. It's obviously, a little bit more money per session.
And it is a membership.
It is a
so
membership.
they're paying monthly for either once a week, twice a week, or we have. You can maybe talk about the something that we put together, total recovery solution. That kind of it's kind of front loaded when it comes to the amount of sessions that they'll do, and then we'll kind of ease them into training. So fix an issue and then ease them into training.
For our fat loss clients, I think most people who are maybe struggling with weight, a lot of them have an underlying orthopedic issue that maybe prevents them from taking that next step in their health and fitness. So what TJ's talking about, the Total Recovery Solution, is a 90-day program, and what we found kind of anecdotally and talking to other people and just experience based is 90 days. That's a nice chunk of time that you can really work with somebody and get them to a point where we can seamlessly move them into a training program. So the first month, they're going to see more than half of their sessions in the first month, and the first month is about getting them out of pain. And then month 2 is really where we're starting to kind of reverse maybe some of those deep-seated movement dysfunctions or postural issues or maybe whatever other orthopedic issues they may have. And then in month 3, it's really about preparing them and transitioning them to sustainability programming, whether that's at home or in a group setting or in a private training setting.
It's a great supplement and a complement to the training, because we always know that if you have an injury, you have a client with an injury, you need to refer them out. But it's great now we can keep them in-house.
Keep them in-house, so, right. And then a lot of times we just modify their programming or their membership. If they really can't train, then we'll roll them into a recovery lab membership that, keeps that revenue in-house, obviously, but we're also able to give them what they need. And then they don't, they're already comfortable with us. We've already built that relationship of trust. So it definitely, on the results end of things, that's how you get results. When you have that strong relationship with a kid, an athlete, or a parent, or when people come and we're the first people to see an injury, that's when we know we're doing the right stuff.
I'll tell you though, you guys, it's great to see too, because it's one of the hardest things. What I went through at 5 Iron, and I got an extra 1,000 square feet. Now I had a little break room and an office in there, but I had the massage room and the two tables. I even bought the tables, a couple grand, to try to rent out to chiro and physical therapy. But I never found the physical therapist. I just never found that person that could fit in there. There's a couple people that maybe philosophically we could have gelled. Maybe, I'm not even sure if it would have worked, but business-wise, it just wasn't working out. So I ended up giving the space back to my landlord. But it's so great that you guys, it's rare to have that philosophical, having those same philosophical ideas and being able to work in the same room.
Well, it was born in the athletic training classrooms of Marist College. We both went to school together, graduated. Mike stayed on the athletic training path. I moved over to the strength and conditioning path. So we've had a very both different paths in our careers, but we met back up a couple years ago back in Astoria, Queens, and we kind of brought it all together. So it's really the thing is that we both come from the sports medicine background, and I understand the importance, but I also understand that I can't get my hands on every athlete. So it's really, when I was doing it on my own, when I first started in the 300 square feet, there were so many athletes that there was things that I couldn't do for them. And there were days where I would just bring Mike out. He's working in the city. Hey, you got to come out for the weekend, and I got 4 athletes that I want you to assess and see what you can do. So, it was both business-wise and philosophy-wise, it just made so much sense. And we looked at the other models and said, why don't they work? And a lot of the times it's because it's two separate philosophies and two separate businesses.
Yeah.
So even if the
You end up
philosophies
competing
match up,
on some level.
Yeah.
You know, and
Technically,
then this way it's all within the AMP family and
yeah, we still monitor where the revenue's coming from.
Yeah.
So we always have our goals, our monthly goals, but it's really been it's been something that's unique, I think.
Yeah, good stuff. Let's finish up with just maybe a couple things, one or two things that maybe you almost on the wish list, or you wish you did a little differently, or anything that you can kind of think of right now that you kind of wish you did.
You know what? Yeah, we went over a lot of it, but I think, possibly in the space itself, we're in 5,100 square feet, 5,200 square feet. So, possibly we may kick ourselves in the future, maybe that we wanted more space. But, again, we did it, I think we did it the right way, in that we started off real small, then we got a little bit bigger, now we're bigger than we were. And I think we can really grow into the space that we've got. And then you never know what's going to happen down the line. So right now we're doing pretty well. I'm very happy with where we're at today, and especially looking back on all the stuff that we've been through.
Yeah.
But
When's
maybe
the book coming out, bud?
yeah, right, yeah. But I think maybe not sweating the small stuff is probably one of the things that I stressed out so much in that time. And it's always knowing that you have that support system. Sometimes you kind of allow yourself to get in your own head. So it's not the end of the world. And just make sure that that you're going in an educated way, but don't let it slow you down. I think because I think I slowed myself down at times.
Okay. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great to see the progression. I mean, I'm so excited to be here and see, I love this place. I just want to go have a cup of coffee over there.
Yeah.
Sit on the trailer park chairs.
AMP cold brew.
But guys, thanks for doing this, man. This has been
Thank you.
awesome.
Thanks so much, Ant.
Good luck moving forward. All right.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
enjoyed it.
Appreciate everything you do for us, man.